the MicroBrewr podcast. Here's your host, Joe Shellaroo.
All right, and welcome to the first session of the MicroBrewr podcast. Man, I'm just so excited to get this going. I feel like there's so many great stories to share throughout the craft brewing industry, and let's just jump into it. So in this podcast, we've got a great interview lined up with Ozzie Nelson from Mayday Brewery in Tennessee, which we'll get to in just a minute. But before that, since this is the first podcast, I thought we should probably start out, and I can give a quick intro about myself. So probably like a lot of you, I first really started getting into craft beer a couple years out of college when my soon-to-be wife got me my first home brewing kit. After the first batch of beer, it honestly really wasn't that good. I was just hooked. And I really started to build up my home brewing kit when we decided that we were going to provide home brewed beer and wine for our wedding a couple years later. And I've got to tell you, there's nothing better than drinking beer all night and brewing while being able to say you're just working hard prepping for the wedding. And then that brings us to the MicroBrewr podcast and the website. So initially, I've got a background in engineering and business, but what really drew me into the craft beer industry was a couple of things. First, it's just amazing how quickly the craft beer industry has been growing lately. I've been seeing breweries popping up all over the place, and also I was talking to a lot of people, and it was light beer drinkers, people who normally don't even drink beer, and they're suddenly transitioning to their favorite local brewery or brew pub down the street. The second thing that really drew me into this industry is just how awesome the people are. I mean, really, I've never met a more fun and generous community than this one. So with that, I really felt the need to contribute back and hopefully provide some good information that can help craft brewers continue the amazing movement that's already been going on. So what we're going to try to do in this podcast is dive into the craft beer industry and reveal what it takes to start and run a successful microbrewery or brew pub. So through different interviews with current brewery owners, we're going to learn what's going on, what's working, and what mistakes to avoid. So a couple of things that we'll cover, we're going to be looking at craft beer trends. We can talk about distribution, how to design your brewing space, getting the most of your current equipment, planning for expansions, marketing, branding, social media, raising money, permitting, festivals, just any way to get your beer in more people's hands, and so much more. So this podcast is also set up to support the amazing craft beer industry and all the awesome people who make up it. So I just love hearing those stories. So if you got a great story, let's talk and get in contact because it's just so fun. Going forward, I'm going to plan on doing the podcast every other week, and then we can see how that goes. So what we'll do is every podcast is going to have show notes attached where I'll have links to anything that we mentioned in the podcast. So for this podcast, since it's the first podcast, we're going to have the show notes located at microbrewr.com/session1. So it's microbrewr.com/session and then the number 1. So these are going to have all the links to anything that we mentioned throughout the podcast. Now that we've got all the introductions all the way, let's just jump into the interview with one of the amazing people in the craft brewing industry that I've met, and that's Ozzie Nelson from Mayday Brewing. So sit back, have a beer, and enjoy. All right, so this podcast, we want to welcome Ozzie Nelson from Mayday Brewery in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So welcome to the MicroBrewr podcast, Ozzie.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you letting me be on.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on. For anybody who's not familiar with Mayday Brewery, can you kind of give us an overview of your brewery?
Sure. We're a production brewery. We are in a building, an old factory that was built in 1923. We have 12,000 square feet of the original 100,000 square foot building. We're in an industrial area about half a mile from the town square in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is about the center of Tennessee geographically. We have about 300 barrels of fermentation space. We do mostly ales. We have a tasting room that's open Thursday, Friday, 4 to 8, Saturday, 1 to 8. We do tours, and we have live music at the brewery.
All right, cool, man. So let's see, there's a lot that we covered there. We can probably go into more detail on each of it. How do you end up deciding that you wanted to start the brewery? What was the main thing that said, all right, I need to start Mayday Brewery?
Well, I have been working in corporate America for almost 30 years, and I know that I can go no farther up the corporate ladder. I'm as far as I'm going to get, and I'm not satisfied. I wanted to have something more and wanted to have something for myself, something that would live after I'm gone. Can't do that with a job.
Yeah. So at that point, you said, all right, brewing, that's the way I want to go, and then took off from there?
Well, brewing is fun, or having a brewery is fun. People like people that make beer, so I thought that would be a good avenue. I've done other things like I have a couple of rental houses. I'm always looking for something new to do and something exciting, and this is pretty fun and exciting.
So once you decide you want to get going, what was the first steps that you did to start the brewery? I mean, where'd you start? That's where a lot of people are getting hung up. Is there's so many things to take a look at.
Well, the first thing I did was I went to Siebel in Chicago and took the concise course in brewing. Then I started working on the business plan almost simultaneously to that. So I had a good basis of brewing knowledge, and I've been home brewing since '93, but there was a whole lot I didn't know. The other reason for going to Siebel in Chicago was to look for a brewer, because I knew that I was going to keep my job and I wasn't going to quit because I needed the income, and I didn't want the brewery to have to support my household. So I kept my job, and I hired two guys to brew for me. They still work for me. I worked on recipes. I worked on the business plan. I first got a business plan software that I used initially, and then kind of abandoned that and just built once I had the text of what I wanted to do down the pieces of the business plan, just worked on the financials with Excel, starting with assumptions, going to projected balance sheets, profit and loss statements, all the way through, even investor shares and investor percentages, things like that.
All right. So then once you got the business plan together, what was the next step? When you're looking for capital, how did you approach that?
Well, I talked to every bank that I knew of. One good idea that a friend of mine had that I found out after I secured my money was he went to the newest bank in the state, because he knew that bank wouldn't have any bad loans, so he would have a better chance of getting a loan. And I thought that was a great strategy, but I did not employ that. I used my own money, everything that I have, mortgaged everything, every penny that I have. And then I looked for investors among friends and family, and then went to, I talk to people all the time. Every person I talk to, hey, you want to invest in the brewery? Hey, you want to own a piece of a brewery? And finally, I got those investors that I needed. Still couldn't get a bank loan, but I had secured about $700,000 between my own money and my investors. My builder, or my landlord, actually financed the build out, and that was about $300,000. And so we had right at $1 million in the beginning. And once we opened and everything looked good, then the banks were coming by wanting to loan money. So we were able to roll that construction loan from the landlord over to a little bit better terms with the bank.
Okay, so the landlord essentially gave you a construction loan too, so they helped with that $300,000, and it was benefiting them too because they're improving their own building.
That is correct, because they own a construction company too. They're loaded. They have.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
City.
All right. So how do you find the location and the landlord specifically? What were you looking at and considering when you were finding a location to start your brewery in?
We wanted a place with a dock. We wanted a place that we could, the customers could get in and out of, for a tasting room. We wanted ceilings that were at least 15 feet high. We wanted a place that would be cool and that would, that would be conducive for a brewery. And we had a place in mind that fell through, and we just kept looking. We looked for probably 18 months before we found the place that we're actually in.
Okay. And so it sounds like the place that you got.
The landlord, he has a lot of property that's available, and we looked at several of his properties, and once this one came across, it was almost a no-brainer. This was the way to go.
All right. And so when you got your building, it looks like you gave yourself a lot of room to expand too. When you're talking about 12,000 square feet?
We do have 12,000 square feet, and we do have a good amount of space to expand for sure.
Okay. So how do you figure out what?
Be all up and know where to go.
Okay.
We can even expand back in this building. There's only probably 50% of this building's rented, so we have more that we could do here.
Oh, okay. How do you pick the original size of the brewery that you wanted? Was it more money dictating that, or was it what you thought you were going to get for demand? How do you pick? Where do you start for size?
That's a good question. What we originally, I was looking at all sizes, talking to all people, everybody I could talk to as far as brewers went, and all the brewers that I talked to that had a 15-barrel system told me they wish they had a bigger brew house in the beginning. So we went with a 30-barrel from the start, 30-barrel brew house with 4 30-barrel fermenters and 2 30-barrel bright tanks. And that seemed to be the way to go. And I'm proud that we did that. That made us one of the larger breweries in Tennessee from day one, as far as size of the brew house.
Okay. And then I saw an article recently that you were looking at doubling your fermentation already.
Oh, we did do that. Yes, we added 2 90-barrel fermentation tanks and 1 90-barrel bright tank. All of our equipment comes from DME. They really have treated us well with equipment, so we're proud to be with DME up in Prince Edward Island, Canada.
Okay.
Right now, we were at capacity when we added those tanks. Right now, we're at about that same level. Of course, we've added that. Well, we added more than 2 times our fermentation space, so we're not even close to at capacity now, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. So you were saying that you've got your tasting room open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I'm assuming that you're bottling the rest of the beer and then shipping that out to different locations. Is that right?
No, we don't bottle at all. All we do is keg right now.
Oh, okay.
So we're in 5 counties in Middle Tennessee. We aren't anywhere else, and we keg our beer. We have 1 distributor, and they distribute to our Middle Tennessee locations, and we're planning on canning eventually, but right now, all we do is keg.
Okay. How do you find your distributor?
Well, in Tennessee, the Middle Tennessee area, there are only 4 beer distributors. There's Budweiser, Miller, and I wasn't going to go with either one of those. There's a liquor distributor that does a lot of craft beer, and then there's a brand new, strictly craft beer distributor. And we went with the liquor distributor that also has some craft beer. They already had handles in places, and they're a Jack Daniel's distributor, so they have contacts with all of the restaurants. So I thought that would be the best way to go.
Okay. How much marketing do they do for you specifically compared to how much do you have to go out to the different bars and try to get your kegs out there?
I think it depends on the salesperson actually that's over that territory. I think some are better than others, and we do have a full-time salesperson, and she rotates through the locations. And what we normally do is she just tries to make the people happy where our beer currently is, as opposed to looking for new accounts. If we come across somebody that wants to carry our beer as a new account, then we'll contact the distributor and they'll taste them and things like that. But normally, what our sales girl does is she makes sure that the accounts we're currently in are happy and everything's going well with them.
Okay. So when you've got the tasting room on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, do you treat that more like a brew pub where you've got food with that, or are people just coming in specifically for the beer? Could you go through that?
We have food trucks always. We try to every time we're open, we want to have food here. We don't have a kitchen or anything. We have food trucks that we trust that are good at showing up. That's one thing about food trucks. Sometimes they are fickle. But we've been able to establish some relationships with several, so we can we promote them. We put them on our Facebook page. Who's going to be there? What the menu's going to be for that night. Things like that. We do a ton of this with social media, and but the food trucks, they take care of all the food. I don't want to be in that business at all.
I love that strategy because that's where a lot of brew pubs really get hung up, is they're trying to deal with the food part of it, which ends up being a pretty big piece of the brew pub, and don't get to spend as much time on brewery or on brewing beer, which is what they're really into. You were talking about social media. So what different social media platforms are you using? What do you think's working the best for you?
We do a lot on Facebook. One of my investors does all of our Facebook posts, and he does a fantastic job with that, promoting what's going on. Every Sunday he runs a comic. So there's a Sunday comic from Mayday every week. We post all of our tour pictures. We take a picture of every tour and post that to our Facebook page. We also just have announcements, things that are coming up. We will post at least one or two things on Facebook every day. On Twitter, we do quite a bit. We do what I call the tour Twitter takeover. So I find a person on any tour, random person, hand them my phone, and say, "You're tweeting for the brewery the rest of this tour. Just give them love and don't worry about being inappropriate." And then we do a lot of Instagram as well. So Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are the three things we're heavy into. Our website is very slim right now. We're trying to get a website up. We've been in business for 13 months, and we just have kind of a shell of a website. We focused more on the Facebook and social media rather than a website so far.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Another thing that I know that you're doing, which is one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you, you were putting out some pretty funny videos. I mean, they're hilarious. You should go check them out, and I'll put some links on the show notes. They're good quality, and it, like, for the first couple that I was seeing, it reminded me of like a Duck Dynasty type reality show when you guys were getting ready to launch the brewery. How do you put that together? It was great quality. You had the different transitions in between the music. What'd you do, and who came up with that idea?
Well, we wanted to have a reality show similar to Reno 911. We have a lot of creative people and ideas. I had a buddy that produces commercials for some car dealerships, so he was able to help us film and edit everything and have the transitions relatively professionally done. But once we opened, that just got to be ridiculous. There was no way we could do it. You have to sit down, write a script, and then take, retake. It takes time. especially when you're acting. So, that's in quotes, acting. Man, I lost my train of thought. So,
that's fine.
just pitch that stuff, man. Just pitch that yeast. It's good. Go. All right.
We're catching you in
So
action.
now what we want to do, what I'd like to do is a little shorter videos, do like a 1 minute video of thoughts from the brewery or something, and we've still got pages of ideas that we can do. It's just tough to get around to it with all the other things that we're trying to get done.
Yeah. And those were some other of the videos that I saw that you directed me to. I think it was on Vimeo. So you had the promotion for was it jorts and chicken? So it's the cutoff jean short event.
Yeah,
so that one was hilarious.
That is hot chicken and jorts. It's for a charity here in Middle Tennessee, and we have a contract brew called Jubilee is the name of the company, and we brew their beer proudly. They give half their profits to charity. We promote their beer, and so we have an event every year that we planned even before we opened that we would do this hot chicken and jorts. So it's a big redneck party. We have a king and queen of the trailer park crowned during the event. We have live bands all day, local rock and roll bands. We also have rock paper scissors tournament, field of 64 on that, and it's a great time. I always say, you got to show you some pocket. Come on in and show me some pocket.
And that's one of the things I was seeing is you were definitely showing some pocket in some of those. So when you were getting your brewery going, you got 4 beers. You got Boral Blonde, Angry Redhead, Velvet Hustle, Evil Octopus. How do you pick those 4 beers? Was it you guys just trying different brews, tasting them and seeing what you like? Did you get them out to prospective customers? How do you stick with those 4?
Well, we want to make balanced beer. In Tennessee, we can only do 6.2% ABV for it to be considered beer. 6.3 is considered liquor. So, and that's a whole other business. So we basically make session beers, and we try to make them as balanced as we can so you can drink more than one. That's the kind of the foundation. And then from there, the beers we picked are, everybody has a pale ale, so you got to have a pale ale. And then around that pale ale, that's the Velvet Hustle. I thought a blonde would be good because not a lot of breweries do blondes. And the Angry Redhead is a red beer with a little more hops and a little more alcohol than your Killian style red. And then we did a India Black Ale, or people call it Black IPA, that we because not a whole lot of breweries were doing it at the time. Now a lot more are doing it, but I just wanted to have something a little bit different, so that I wasn't copying anyone else. I want to be different, and that's something I think about every day. How can I differentiate myself from the other breweries in town, or the other breweries anywhere for that matter.
Yeah, and with the differentiation, I love your logo or your slogan. Can you tell the audience what that is?
Yeah, our slogan is "We try not to suck." We work really hard, and we try not to suck, but every now and then we do, and I hate that, but it happens for sure. We have that on a billboard here in town, and I've gotten a call from a angry mother that she was tired of sitting at that light seeing our billboard, or her kids seeing the billboard.
Obviously getting people's attention.
Suck. Do what?
You're obviously getting people's attention.
People's attention. We do a lot of different things. We have an attendant in the women's room. It's a mannequin. His name's Manny, and I change his clothes every week, and he's well equipped. And so I always ask women, the women under 30 will always say, hey, did you check out his package? Women under 30 will always say, are you kidding me? No. Women over 60, every single one say, hell yeah.
That's awesome.
We have velvet nudes in the velvet paintings of nude women in the brewery. That is one of the attractions for the tour. We bring people in our fermentation chamber. We do a small batch every week. It's 10 gallons. We bring it out on Thursday, and when it runs out, it's out. Because people always ask me, when are you going to do a new beer? Well, we do a new beer every single Thursday. Come on in, check it out. In that fermentation chamber, that's where I bring the bands, and kind of we have a ritual of taking a shot of Ronde Jeremy spiced rum before the bands play. I say you got to get a little Ron Jeremy in you before you play.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about all this stuff, it just sounds like you guys are just having a blast, and that's what I'm getting from all these creative promotions. You've got all the different videos, social media. I mean, given your Twitter account to somebody, I was seeing tons of Twitter posts last night from you, and I'm assuming that was the case. That was going on there. Oh, that was
the case. I haven't even gone back and read the posts yet, man. People said, "Oh, I'm so good on your Twitter. Have you read it yet?" Yeah, we'll see. You did.
Hey, you were talking about live music. How do you go about setting that up?
One of our investors, the same one that does the Facebook posts, is very into live music, and he is able to book bands. I don't have the details on that. What I do is I just delegate that to him, and he hooks up the bands, and we're starting to have a lot of bands to contact us. Hey, can we play at your place? Because we know it's really cool. The thing we found with bands is that, at our place, they usually pay for or play for tips and beer. So we don't have a lot of money to pay them. So we treat them as well as we possibly can. We give them T-shirts, hats. We give them beer that they want. We hook them up, and we treat them like family. And those guys talk. So they talk to other bands, and they say we were treated well at Mayday, and so that's why I think that's how we attract more bands. But we have a very limited budget as far as paying bands, but these guys like to play in our venue, so that's what we do. We have 3 kind of unique music venues here at the brewery. We play in our tasting room. We have acoustic bands that play, and then in the brewery we have a stage that is kind of portable that we got off Craigslist, and we have full bands that play in the brewery. Then we also have an outside setup where on the loading dock, you can hear the train go by. We're really close to the train tracks. The bands play out on the loading dock, and we've got a big deck where people can just hang out, listen to music, drink beer, eat the food trucks. It's pretty awesome.
There's nothing better than beer and live music.
For sure. And we have some great musicians that come through here, and I tell everyone I am humbled by how talented they are and how little they'll play for. And I wish I could pay them more.
Hey, when you were building the brewery, could you go through any things that you ran into that you weren't expecting, any major issues that you were going through?
One major issue was water, and the water plant wants to know how much, especially in a small town like this, they want to know how much water you're going to use. They want to know what you're going to put down the drain and in what quantities. And that was really hard to quantify with the data that I had available. So that was very tricky. We have, in the beginning, we had effluent tanks actually in the brewery that we would pump air through constantly and treat so that the pH was correct. Before we put it down the drain, the pH has to be 5.5 to 10 here in this town. Since then, we've moved that outside, and we have an automatic system that checks the pH and pumps caustics into that effluent tank. And there's bugs in there that eat the yeast so that the biological oxygen demand is diminished, and we also the city has a apparatus outside that actually tests our water as it goes down the drain to make sure that they bill us properly for the what they call the impact fees for biological oxygen demand. So that's been the biggest headache, the biggest surprise, the biggest challenge for us, I think, other than dealing with a lot of different personalities between brewers and investors and customers and things like that. Those are the two biggest, I would say, the effluent and the personalities.
Hey, you were talking about DME.
Joe,
yeah.
Can't we hug it out, man?
I like that strategy. I like it. Hey, so you were talking about going through DME to find all your equipment. How do you find them?
Well, I knew about DME because a local brewery here in Nashville, Yazoo, we brewed on their old equipment, and it was DME. And so they were on our list of vendors to contact and get quotes from when we began the process. The reason we went with them was they were reasonably priced, and they really worked hard to get our business and to educate us on their product and what they had available, and tell me where I was stupid. So I don't find that at all.
Hey man, it sounds like you're having a blast. If you could do it again, would you do it?
I would do it absolutely. I may do a couple of things different, but I think with us, it's all about serendipity, man. I think that the right people came at the right time that had the right amount of talent to really make us great. I mean, the diversity of personalities and talent is just really cool that we have here at the brewery. And then people, just customers, help us out on a lot of different things as well.
So, as we wrap it up, any advice that you'd have for somebody new that's looking at getting into brewing?
Well, my philosophy is make good beer and don't be shy to talk to the people. Don't be shy to talk to those people that are going to be buying your beer. Don't hide behind anything. Go out there, meet the people, talk to the people, love the people, hug the people, laugh with them, cry with them, drink beer with them. And that's just kind of my philosophy. I figure if you know me and you like me, then you're going to buy my beer, even if it sucks every now and then. But we definitely don't want to put beer out that's bad, but always love the people, love your customers.
Man, and that's one thing that I've seen with your brewery, between the videos, the reviews that I've seen up, everybody's saying, yep, the owner is awesome. Go talk to Ozzy. He's the man. So just having you around and showing that, you're building that personal connection too. So it's more than just the beer like you're talking about.
I think it's super important. I think hiding behind somebody else is not very smart. I want to be the man out there to handle whether you have a complaint or whether you're praising us. Either way, I want to be the guy that deals with it.
So if people want to find out more information on Mayday Brewery, where should they go?
The best way to look at what we're doing is on Facebook, Mayday Brewery, and then Twitter, Mayday Brewery, Instagram, Mayday Brewery. Our website will be up someday. MaydayBrewery.com. We'll get there eventually.
And what I'll do is I'll put together a page of show notes on microbrewer.com too, so you can go there, and we'll have all the links listed that Ozzy is talking about. So, Ozzy, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk. It's been a blast talking to you.
All right, Joe, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. Come on out here and drink a beer with me sometime.
Next time I'm in Tennessee, I'm stopping by.
All right, I'll hold you to it.
All right, sounds good. Have a good day.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
All right, see ya. So I hope you enjoyed that interview. And for anybody listening who is located around Tennessee, make sure to stop by and support Mayday Brewing, since these guys have just been a blast to work with. Also, I want to remind you that the links and videos that we talked about during the podcast are located at microbrewer.com/session1. Again, microbrewer.com/session and the number 1. Finally, I just want to let you know that we put together a free ebook on 6 social media tools that can help you to get people talking about your beer. So since social media is just such a big thing to promoting your brewery, which is also free, we wanted to get an ebook out there. So this is free, and it's just another way that we're trying to get back to the community. So if you want to go get that, just go to microbrewer.com/ebook, and you'll find a link to that. We also have a link right on our front page. So, and that's it for the session. I just really want to thank you again for listening. It really means the world to me. And if there's anything that I can do for you at all, please let me know. So keep supporting your local breweries and have a great one.
Thanks for listening to the MicroBrewr Podcast with Joe Shelleroo. We'll see you right here next time at microbrewer.com.